Hey everyone, welcome to Chat Cinema. I'm here with Steve Yates. Today we're going to talk about middle budget films.
Hi, Breck. Yes, it's good to be here again. And yeah, it's just interesting at the moment because of the Marvel franchise and the takeover of the industry, which has left the likes of the old school, the renowned and respected old school, like Martin Scorcese and, of course, Woody Allen. It's left them a bit out in the cold, and naturally they sort of quite deride these films. Obviously the blockbuster films that have been playing at cinemas. But the bigger concern now is that you'll get to like a 24 screen cinema in LA.
The
And
ArcLight, yeah, the ArcLight. We all know the ArcLight.
and it turns out that the same film, which is Frozen,
Yeah,
is playing 21 of those screens. I mean,
21. They have 24 screens. Yeah, and Frozen is playing on 21. And it's the same thing in the summertime. You go to a cinema, 10, 15, 20 screens, and if there's a Marvel film being released, more than likely that Marvel film is probably on like 15 or 16 of them.
So the question is, how did it become like this? But the pressure on now, it's like this Walmart syndrome. It's like every year you've just got to increase your profit by X percent, no matter what you do, how you do that. And that has now replicated itself in the cinema industry. I mean, Hollywood always was a factory that was
Oh, it's been a business, yeah.
always been a business, always there to make money, and you can see that in the nature of films that get made. Be it popular TV program, a remake of a classic film, and now, of course, in the last 10 years, the franchise of the old Marvel comic legend, which has, of course, had a rebirth. Gigantic rebirth in the film industry.
I think right now, well, I mean, like we said, it is a business. And film studios, the studio heads, they have to report to stockholders. They have to report to their corporate overlords. Warner Brothers is now AT&T, for example. Universal is Comcast. They have no other choice. And the stock market wants profits. They want growth at any cost. And they don't care about artistic endeavors. You can't go to a stockholders meeting and say, well, we have this film and it's going to be very artistic, but we're going to lose $100 million. Good luck with that proposition.
Absolutely, absolutely. But what do you think that means for? I mean, we know the old auteurs like Martin Scorsese and Woody Allen are a little bit obsessed about this.
Coppola and Almodovar also.
But even Pedro Almodovar. But what does this? What do you think this means for the likes of, say, like Wes Anderson or Sam Mendes?
The problem is with Wes Anderson. Wes Anderson's films don't really cost a lot of money. Compared to, okay, Scorsese's complaining. However, I just want to say The Irishman cost $160 million. And Martin, your last film lost over $100 million. Let's have a think about this. He knows the economics of Hollywood better than anyone. He's been in the business. If your last film lost a lot of money and you're proposing a film with 3 stars who are not exactly at their box office prime and it's going to cost $160 million and your highest grossing film made $290 million with Leonardo DiCaprio, the economics are not in your favor. So he's going around complaining about Marvel films. At first, I thought this was a PR stunt to drum up interest
Yes.
and to get headlines for The Irishman. I think he got way into it and he didn't know how to get out of it.
So now it's become very much a public spat between
Right.
himself and Hollywood. And the same goes for Woody Allen. Where do you think that leaves the likes of people like Steven Spielberg? Because he's the producer of the upcoming 1917, isn't
Yeah,
he?
I think, yeah. But Spielberg is different. Spielberg has always, well, I mean, there's always this argument, is Spielberg an auteur? But Steven Spielberg has a box office track record.
Yes.
We can't argue with that.
And he's responsible for the biggest movies
Yeah, exactly.
of all time.
And he's actually responsible for the blockbuster. Jaws was a massive blockbuster.
Yes.
And I was raised on Steven Spielberg films, so I can't say anything. I loved Raiders of the Lost Ark. I saw E.T. at the cinema. Steven Spielberg is different. Like I said, he knows the economics of the film business. He's been a producer. He's owned a studio. He's a director. He has made money for every studio in Hollywood. The same can't be said of Coppola or Scorsese. Scorsese, his commercial track record is shoddy at best. He's an artistic guy. Granted, his artistic track record is incredible. But as far as box office goes, no, he was never a box office person.
No.
Without Leo,
No.
Go back and look at his films, his box office, outside of New York, LA, and Chicago,
So it has to be argued that with Scorsese having a bit of a spat, he's just seen it from the point of view of the connoisseur,
exactly.
the artistic side of American filmmaking, of which there is plenty, of course.
Of course.
And probably he's just, either is sour grapes or he's genuinely concerned for the future of the artistic
I think the film industry
credibility in Hollywood and the sort of films that might get made in the future.
To me, he's coming across as an old man who's stuck in a time warp. His day has come and gone. Hollywood is moving on to the next generation. And he's looking around, surveying and saying, what the hell is going on here? I'm Martin Scorsese.
Yeah.
And you are Martin Scorsese. But now we're in the age of Marvel Comics.
Yes.
Martin Scorsese is, like I say, he was never a box office draw. You either deal with the change or you get out. That's how Hollywood is.
Yeah, absolutely. And
you should know that.
And like they say, he's done some brilliant films, especially in his early career, but consistently he's been good since then as well. And I've even enjoyed his musical documentaries, like on Bob Dylan.
Film, you can't argue with the man. As far as artistic, please, there's no way. But commercial, Martin.
He was never commercial.
No, never. He never embraced commercial.
And if he was commercial by default because he made it. He was lucky in many ways to get
DiCaprio.
Well,
it was because DiCaprio wanted some type of, but DiCaprio was already at the top, and so now DiCaprio wanted to be taken seriously as an actor. I'm an actor. Look, Mom, I can really do this. So I have to work with someone who can give me a cachet. Scorsese gave him that artistic cachet, and DiCaprio gave Scorsese box office cachet. So it was a trade-off. That's what this was all about. But then when Coppola jumped in, I said, okay, wait a minute here, hold on. Francis, now we love The Godfather. Love you. I mean, Godfather, okay, changed the world.
Yes.
But when was the last time there was a Coppola film that had any type of merit?
That's right. I mean,
it's
a guilty pleasure, but the film, one of his films that I really do like is the one that bankrupted his studio.
One from the Heart.
One from the Heart. Where
God,
it's one of those guilty. They take instead of filming outside in the Las Vegas streets.
Yeah, he built it in the studio.
He built it in his studio as well.
What was he on when he made that movie?
I don't know. He was. I mean, he did that. He bankrupted his studio, and then he made two real indie films.
He had to. But he became a director for hire pretty much after that. After he lost everything with the One from the Heart, he did. I don't know. He just lost something. Maybe the pressure really got to him.
Yes,
and that's why he became a director for hire. I mean, they gave him producer credit and they gave him money and all that stuff. But his career never really
recovered after that.
One from the Heart. No one really trusted him. Everyone kind
of. But then in a strange sort of, he made interesting films after that because The Outsiders and
I remember the
Rumblefish.
Rumblefish.
Yeah.
And they were interesting. I did find Rumblefish very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it wasn't exactly The Godfather.
No, that's it. It was almost like a different director. It was it's suddenly time warped and become this graduate filmmaker or something, making his first feature, like a first Jim Jarmusch film or something.
Yeah, exactly. And then he did Dracula, which was for hire, and Dracula is still an interesting film. It was interesting.
Bram Stoker's. Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Exactly. He had a great cast and everything. But Francis, like I said before, your last interesting film was Apocalypse Now.
Yes.
Your last film of significance was about...
Totally.
When was that? 1980?
No, 79.
79, yeah.
79. So
okay.
A long time ago.
Yeah, we're talking a lot of people have been born since then. But we still love you, Francis. But Hitchcock had a very famous quote I remember from his book, Hitchcock, Truffaut, Hitchcock.
Oh, yes.
And he was talking about, he had a string of flops in the late middle to late 40s. And he got really, really nervous. So he turned to Jack Warner and did Dial In for Murder. He said, I could have directed Dial In for Murder blindfolded. But he had no other choice because he'd done so many flops in a row. He got really, really scared. And he said,
I think after Notorious, he did like...
There's a gap.
There's a gap.
Nothing really...
Until like you say, Dial In for was Strangers on the... It's considered one of his best films now.
Yeah.
Was it a flop at the time?
Yeah, it didn't do Strangers on the Train. He had a lot of problems with Strangers on the Train.
Right.
And Rope. He
Rope,
did
of
Rope.
course,
I
Rope.
love Rope,
Yeah,
but
I
that
love
wasn't
Rope.
it. Yeah, I love
Yeah,
watching Rope.
yeah.
He had problems with Rope. But he did what? The Paradigm Case, Montgomery Clift, and then he did the one with Marlene Dietrich, which didn't do so well. He had like three or four films that did not do so well.
And there's one with Montgomery Clift playing a priest.
He's a priest, yeah.
Yes,
and that was a disaster. He hated making that movie.
Yeah, that was... Yeah. I think its British title was I Confess.
Yeah, I Confess, that in English also.
That's right.
And he had, like I said, these flops. And he said, wait a minute here. All of a sudden, the studios may not trust me anymore with money or with the budget. So I need to do something very quickly to restore myself. So he was very smart. And he decided, okay, I'm just going to do real simple things that I can really do and make money. So he did, like I said, Dial In for Murder. He did To Catch a Thief. He went back to his old reliable actors. He went back to Cary Grant and James Stewart. Well, okay, the movie with James Stewart flopped. The one with that I actually loved. The one with Kim Novak.
Oh, Vertigo.
Yeah. That was a flop, actually.
Yeah.
But it grew in stature later.
Oh, totally. And now it comes top now, doesn't it?
It's top,
critics. Especially in the UK. I think twice it's been every 10 years the BFI do a top 100 list based on all critics' opinions, and Vertigo's it's overtook Citizen Kane.
Yeah, exactly.
In the last 20 years.
Well, see, but he was smart, and Steven Spielberg's smart too. He understands the economics of cinema.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
And that's what makes Steven Spielberg so great. That's why he's had such a long career.
Yes.
But like I said, I don't know if Scorsese really understands it or wants to understand it, or he's just in denial about it. I don't know.
Yeah, and he's allowed to have his sort of he's a big fan of cinema as well, and he's also part of the preservation of silent films, isn't he?
Right.
He's the.
But does he understand the business of it?
Well, it comes across as especially with the commentaries, he's more of an enthusiast, and he's more of a cinema lover in terms of the cinematic art. But yeah, he doesn't from his comments.
Hey everyone, welcome to Chat Cinema. I'm here with Steve Yates. Today we're going to talk about middle budget films.
Hi, Breck. Yes, it's good to be here again. And it's just interesting at the moment because of the Marvel franchise and the takeover of the industry, which has left the likes of the old school, the renowned and respected old school, like Martin Scorcese and, of course, Woody Allen. It's left them a bit out in the cold, and naturally they sort of quite deride these films. Obviously the blockbuster films that have been playing at cinemas, but the bigger concern now is that you'll get to like a 24 screen cinema in LA. And
the ArcLight, we all know the ArcLight.
And it turns out that the same film, which is Frozen, is playing 21 of those screens.
21. They have 24 screens, and Frozen is playing on 21. And it's the same thing in the summertime. You go to a cinema, 10, 15, 20 screens, and if there's a Marvel film being released, more than likely that Marvel film is probably on 15 or 16 of them.
So the question is, how did it become like this? But the pressure on now, it's like this Walmart syndrome. It's like every year you've just got to increase your profit by X%, no matter what you do, how you do that. And that has now replicated itself in the cinema industry. I mean, Hollywood always was a factory that was made.
Always been a business, yeah.
Always been a business, always there to make money, and you can see that in the nature of films that get made. Be it popular TV program, a remake of a classic film, and now, of course, in the last 10 years, the franchise of the old Marvel comic legend, which has, of course, had a rebirth. Gigantic rebirth in the film industry.
I think, a franchise now has to be a media project. It's not just a movie. 100 years ago, 50 years ago, it was just a movie, and then you had the residual rights. You had
Yes.
TV and now video, and then video and stuff like that. Now it's TV, it's video, it's a cartoon, it's merchandising. It could be a TV show. It's not just so the director. He's just a cog in the system.
Yes.
He's a big cog, but he's not the most important cog in the system anymore. And there's marketing and all this other stuff. I mean, for example, Star Wars. Look at Star Wars. Star Wars isn't just a movie anymore.
No.
Star Wars is everything. Yes. It's everything everywhere.
Yes. I mean, who would have thought that when even Walt Disney himself,
Right.
I don't know, what he envisaged, because obviously when it did take off, he must have thought, he was, the world was his oyster. But who would have thought that there'd be, Disneyland in Paris and as well as in Florida,
Exactly.
all these years later, when he first started sketching Mickey Mouse.
Look what it became.
Look what it became.
And now, Disney, of course, which pretty much owns the film business or pretty much controls it, they have 40% of the box office.
Yes.
They don't care about an auteur. Robert Iger, he doesn't care. He just wants that Star Wars film to make $1 billion. He wants that Marvel film to make $1 billion.
Yes.
That's what he wants. Yeah. And he doesn't care how he gets it. As long as it makes $1 billion, he's happy.
Absolutely.
And the shareholders of Disney are happy. And the other studios are trying to catch up.
Yeah. I mean, concurrent, since the beginnings of cinema, concurrent with the auteurs, or even, of course, before the auteurs, you had the stars themselves.
Exactly.
The people that put the bums on seats because they were your chosen representatives or your dream man or woman.
Exactly.
And how do you feel the star system will?
It's gone. The star system doesn't
Also
exist
gone.
anymore. The age of, the star system pretty much crashed with the studios, and it came back. You had it in the 70s. You had Robert Redford, Barbra Streisand, people like that.
Yes.
And then Tom Cruise, I think, is close to a big star.
Definitely.
Longevity.
Definitely.
His films still make money, especially when he does a Mission Impossible. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
But they don't seem to last very long anymore. A couple of movies and then they just disappear, or maybe they get caught up in themselves. I don't know. But yeah, it's the age of a media franchise. Stars don't open big movies big movies anymore. Frozen just opened to $127 million.
Wow.
A media franchise
In
the U.S. and $350 million worldwide.
Wow. And that was in how many days? Or
3 days, 4 days. Yeah.
Wow.
What does that tell you?
Yeah.
What star can open a movie that?
Yeah.
That? Quentin Tarantino can still open a film. He did okay with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Right.
But I think it made around $400 million worldwide.
Oh, okay.
But compare that to The Joker, which made $1 billion.
Yes. Yeah.
DiCaprio can still open a film. DiCaprio and I think Brad Pitt are still considered stars.
Yes.
But even they know
Yeah.
they're not on the level of a Marvel or a Disney film or DC film anymore. They're not the most important people in the room anymore. Granted, they're still big stars, and I like them a lot. But like I said before, if you're Disney looking at $2 billion and your last film made $450 million, they're like, oh yeah, okay, well we'll see you later. Come
Exactly.
back.
Yeah.
Call us
Absolutely.
when you're back in reality.
Yeah.
I think the three big stars now are DiCaprio, Brad Pitt, and Tom Cruise. Those are the three big ones.
Yeah. Matt Damon, who I guess in the 2000s, late 90s,
Matt Damon
had his run. He's now.
Well, he's that racing film, Ford
Yeah.
versus Ferrari.
Yes.
And it's actually a good film.
Which I saw, which was very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I enjoyed
Which
a
probably
lot.
get Best Picture nomination.
And I thought Christian Bale was excellent in that. Really, really good. I'd definitely give that the thumbs up. But that's it. Which leads nicely onto the idea. Then you've got the franchises which are dominating. So does that mean that the Oscars is actually going to become a sort of a fight for the decent, well-made film as opposed to the film that made the most money?
Well, right now I don't even take the Oscars seriously anymore. You have to pass a purity test to get nominated. Any hint of scandal, forget it. Oh, and Tom Hanks is still a big star. So, yeah,
Yes.
he'll get nominated. But Best Picture, the smaller studios are obviously going to dominate the Best Pictures. I think A24, for example, maybe Lionsgate, their films.
And by maybe winning the Oscar, will that sort of maybe elevate it a little bit? Get some sort of more.
A franchise film gets an Oscar?
Oh no, say like an indie film or a mid-budget film.
A mid-budget indie film, they'll probably get. I mean, but at the same time, they're not going to get the returns of a Joker. Or,
no.
Or a Marvel Comics film. No. It's just not going to happen. No. I just don't see it. Do you think Ford versus Ferrari will make $1 billion?
No, not at all. But then, because of course we've got the Hollywood as a business versus Hollywood as an art form. I mean, I don't think the word Hollywood has ever been that synonymous with art form, even though you've got some brilliant directors, brilliant actors, and also, of course, brilliant production design and brilliant editing. So,
I disagree. I'm a very Hollywood person, everybody. I mean, I do think Hollywood did have some in the 50s, 40s, and the 30s.
Oh, totally, yeah.
And even in the 60s, it had some moments. Yeah. But yeah, I understand where you're coming from. So yeah, I mean, but like I said, right now it's so money driven and big money driven. I just don't see where mid-budget film or an auteur could really survive. Yeah. I mean, but then again, think about it. Scorsese's last film, I repeat, cost $160 million. That's not exactly a small independent film.
Not at all.
Is it? I mean, $160 million movie is not small.
No.
So what's he complaining about?
Yeah. No, it's whether it's sour grapes or whether it's personally aimed at some particular studio executive or executives.
Well, everybody weighed in on it.
Yeah, it's true. He definitely got the budget. Whether he got the carte blanche to get the so-called director's cut, who knows? But no, he certainly got the budget. Yeah,
exactly. What did Katharine Hepburn say? Don't complain, don't explain. You got the $160 million. You made your movie.
Yeah.
Why, like I said, sour grapes. Why point the finger at someone else? Saying, move on, Martin. Come on. Like I said, you sound like the grumpy old man whose life has passed you by, and you're sitting on the porch, rocking in a chair. Back in my day, we did it this way. Martin, let's be more adult about this, okay? You're still making movies with Robert De Niro.
Exactly.
And Joe Pesci and Al Pacino.
Yes.
Or is it just me?
And of course, we've got the Joker, and there's already talk of
There's going to do a sequel.
We're going to do a sequel. The Joker
and they're going to develop more films based on the Batman villains.
Yes. And so,
and that was a mid-budget film. That movie only cost $40 million, $40 or $50 million.
Right. No, which, like you say, is pretty modest these days. Seeing that it costs about 25% of what Marty's cost.
Exactly.
Marty's Scorcese's.
So that was a mid-budget. That big. But of course, in a way, it was a franchise film.
Yeah. So we got that sort of promotion around it as well,
exactly.
which is all important, of course.
DC is part of the DC
and the distribution and everything.
Exactly. Yeah. Warner Brothers behind it, please.
Yeah.
But like I said, I don't know. Hollywood has changed, and I don't really know which. Well, I know which way it's going to go. Do I like it? Well, there's nothing I can do about it. I mean, for example, I don't even critique. I don't write about Marvel films. But why?
Yeah. Oh no, me neither. I mean,
there's just no point.
It's a very good book by Ben Fritz that we looked at recently.
Right.
Yeah. And that's a real pointer because that guy was an economist, but he also wrote for New Yorker, so he was a film fan as well as an economist.
Right.
So he was definitely well placed to give a sort of impartial. A very weighted.
The Big Picture.
That's right, by Ben Fritz.
Check it out.
Yes.
And we did a podcast on it. Definitely check it out if you can.
Check out the podcast and check out the book for sure.
But okay, so in closing, what do you think?
Well, it's just very interesting. I don't think it's exactly crisis time. I'm not a big fan of Marvel films. I quite like the Marvel comics a little bit, like many people did when you were a kid and all that, but not particularly a big fan of Marvel. But it's really put a spanner in the works now. I think of the way the film industry is going to go. I'm talking about the American film industry here.
Definitely. Definitely. I
And to
agree.
a certain extent here in Europe, here in Berlin, be interested to see how distribution is affected. Because
Well, I mean, because in Berlin now you don't have so many of the small independent theaters have closed, and now we have the big chains. And when you go, it's the same thing like
Yes.
in America. You go to
Yeah.
a big chain theater, it's all Marvel or Frozen or it's some big franchise film, and the small films are getting pushed out.
they are. No, that's very true. That's very. I think
You
Berlin,
notice it.
even though Berlin, a lot of the independent cinemas have been affected in Berlin. Fortunately, on the flip side of that, in a novel sort of way, you've got these other little cinemas that seem to be very independent and like a community owned.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
There are quite a few of those. Thank God in Berlin there are lots of small theaters. So please support them if you ever come to Berlin. Buy a ticket and go to them. Some of them are really wild, especially the ones in Kreuzberg.
Yes, very much so, very much so. But good fun nonetheless. It's almost like I never went to New York in the 70s, but it's almost like how I imagined New
I
York
agree.
cinemas would have been in the
I agree.
1970s.
And they do play some of the films I've actually gotten up and walked out of. They were just too quirky for me. I'm like, why the hell did I buy a ticket here? All right, let's just check this out. But okay, so in closing, do you want to say anything about the franchise films?
Well, I'm interested to see how much longevity it's got in it, and say in the next 5 years, is it going to get
it's
bigger?
going to be around. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's going to be a trend for a while.
Yeah, because I guess, like you say, you're going to have Frozen,
Right.
the sequels,
Frozen, there's a third one.
third
yeah.
one in the works, and
Right.
yeah,
There's a new Batman with
Yes.
Robert Pattinson.
Right, yeah.
They're talking about casting Michael Jordan in the next Superman.
okay,
This is going to be around for a while.
yeah, and then if there's going to be a reaction against it in terms of other films or independent films, or how they're made or how they're distributed, and like say for Parfait in France, how are countries like that going to react to it in France, where they obviously they're very proud of their cinema, if they feel they're being culturally invaded by the franchise.
Then they'll just say, okay, you take the French film industry will hate it, but the French theaters will fight for it because
Yes.
they want the business.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the one thing about French cinema that's very strange to me. You have the independent cinemas, but you have the big chains, and the big chains are going to say, "We need these films to stay open."
Yes, yeah.
It boils down to business again.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and it comes down to business and survival. So that's the compromise that they're willing to make.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sure.
And a French film is not. Well, I mean, I shouldn't say that, but a French film won't really attract the numbers of a Marvel Comics film.
No.
Maybe one or two, but it will be hard.
Yes. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or Star Wars. I mean, you can't argue. Star Wars made almost $2 billion. You can't argue with that.
No. Absolutely. And then of course, you've got the demographics, and kids and teenagers love to go to the cinema, and they make up the demographics, don't they?
Exactly.
You might have people like say over 40 who just want to see a really cool art house film or cool historical film, or
they'll stay at home and watch Netflix or Amazon.
Yeah.
Sad. Okay, in closing, thank you for listening to Chat Cinema. I hope we didn't ramble too long for you.
And thank you very much, Brett. It was an interesting conversation, because we decided we would, choose an initial subject and then see where that took us. And I think it took us to some interesting places.
I agree. Take care and stay tuned for the next episode.
Look forward to seeing you then. Bye for now.